No one ever imagines that the very hands that build the future could be the ones placed in handcuffs. The morning sun in Austin, Texas, was brutal, burning down on the sleek glass facade of the federal courthouse. News vans were packed like sardines outside, antennas raised to the sky, reporters jostling for position. Protesters and supporters clashed along the courthouse steps, their homemade signs a blur of conflicting emotions. The world was watching, holding its breath, as Elon Musk, the man who once promised Mars, self-driving cars, and limitless energy, stepped into the cold, unrelenting arms of justice. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, like the pause before a thunderstorm. Courtroom 3B smelled faintly of polished wood and tension. No cameras were allowed inside, but the collective energy of thousands of unseen eyes seemed to press against the heavy doors. Elon walked steadily, dressed in a tailored dark gray suit, his expression unreadable. He nodded briefly at his defense team, his jaw tight, before taking his seat. Presiding over the case was Judge Hannah Cole, a woman whose reputation for ferocity in the courtroom preceded her like a thunderclap. She had built her career tearing down powerful figures who believed they were untouchable. Today, she looked at Musk with the kind of calm intensity that made seasoned attorneys break a sweat. The court clerk stood, voice clear against the murmurs. All rise. The Honorable Judge Hannah Cole presiding. As everyone stood, Elon remained composed, but inside, a war was raging. He wasn't here for some petty regulatory slap. No, this was about integrity at its core, accusations of stock market manipulation, insider trading, and the sinister suggestion that some of his most celebrated innovations had not been as original as the world believed. Mr. Musk, Judge Cole said, her voice low but commanding, in my courtroom, you are not a titan of industry. You are not a pioneer. You are a citizen standing before the law. And here, the law sees through the stars. There was a sharp intake of breath from the gallery. Elon simply nodded. No tweets. No memes. No grandstanding. The prosecution began with a woman who spoke not with anger but with chilling precision, lead prosecutor Claire Weston. Her voice sliced through the room as she outlined a narrative that felt almost impossible, tweets strategically timed to manipulate Tesla stock prices, internal emails suggesting panic and confusion within Musk's own companies, secret meetings with policymakers designed to tilt the playing field. One piece of evidence after another flashed across screens for the jury, tweets that shook markets, emails riddled with panic, private messages that hinted at something darker beneath the polished surface. But it was one phrase that landed hardest, spoken by Claire as she pointed directly at Elon. This isn't about innovation. It's about accountability. The room seemed to shrink around him. Elon sat still, fingers laced, his mind calculating. Every risk he'd taken had been for something bigger, or so he told himself. But now, those same risks were painted in the ugliest colors possible: greed, recklessness, deception. The day wore on. The air grew thick. Judge Cole remained stone-faced, her gavel tapping occasionally like a heartbeat against the polished bench. When the prosecution finally rested, a murmur rippled through the gallery. They had made their case. A strong one. And yet, as Elon stood to speak, without notes, without counsel shielding him, there was a shift. A sense that the man was about to gamble everything on the only weapon he had left, his own voice. I'm not here to deny my flaws, Elon began, his voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. I'm here to remind you that every leap forward in history looked like madness before it looked like genius. He paced slightly, his movements deliberate. I dream out loud. I fail out loud. Because change doesn't whisper its way into the world, it crashes in, messy and loud and terrifying. People leaned forward, drawn to the rawness. If dreaming recklessly is a crime, he said, looking straight at Judge Cole, then I am guilty as charged. A beat of silence followed. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of something deeper, connection, perhaps, or a collision of ideals. But Judge Cole remained unmoved. The trial was far from over. Outside, the sun dipped low, throwing long shadows across the city. Inside, a man once worshipped as a visionary now stood at the precipice, not just of legal ruin, but of something more profound, the possibility that ambition itself was on trial. And tomorrow, the real battle would begin. The next morning, the courthouse felt different. Heavier somehow. As if the walls themselves had absorbed the gravity of what was unfolding within them. As Elon Musk entered the building, his usual swagger was noticeably absent. There were no fans clamoring for autographs, no playful nods to the cameras. Just a man walking into a storm he had helped create. Judge Hannah Cole called the court to order. The defense was set to present their case. Elon's lead attorney, Marcus Lane, was a seasoned trial lawyer with a voice like velvet and a mind like a steel trap. He started slow, methodical, dismantling each piece of the prosecution's evidence with the precision of a surgeon. He painted Musk not as a manipulator, but as a misunderstood visionary. A man who lived so far ahead of the curve that his methods appeared reckless to those who couldn't see the future he glimpsed. Every tweet, every comment, every risk, all of it, Lane argued, was born from an obsession with progress, not greed. For a while, it worked. You could feel it. Jurors nodded, ever so slightly. Even Claire Weston, the formidable prosecutor, seemed to tighten her lips, recalculating her approach. Then, just before noon, the defense called an unexpected witness, Daniela Brooks. Few people in the room recognized her. Those who did knew her as a former mid-level executive at Neuraltech, one of Musk's lesser-known but highly ambitious ventures. She stepped into the witness box with a calmness that belied the firestorm she was about to unleash. Lane approached carefully, aware that surprises in court could backfire spectacularly. "Ms. Brooks," he began, "can you tell the court what you observed during your time at Neuraltech?" Daniela's eyes met the jury, steady and unblinking. "I observed a man consumed by ideas bigger than himself. Ideas that could change the world. But I also observed a system that rewarded audacity over accountability." There was a ripple in the gallery. Judge Cole leaned forward slightly. Daniela continued, "I admired Mr. Musk. Still do, in many ways. But I also witnessed decisions being made in the shadows. Partnerships formed without full disclosure. Patents filed without full ownership." Lane's smile faltered. "Are you suggesting," he asked carefully, "that Mr. Musk knowingly crossed ethical lines?" Daniela nodded. "I'm saying that in pursuit of something he truly believed would benefit humanity, he sometimes convinced himself that the ends justified the means." The courtroom went utterly still. Outside, a storm was gathering, dark clouds rolling over Austin's skyline. It felt prophetic. By the time the lunch recess was called, the case had been cracked open anew. The defense's momentum had stalled. The jury's faces were no longer open, curious. They were wary. And Elon Musk, for the first time, looked truly alone. When the court reconvened after lunch, the tension was a living thing, coiling itself around every wooden bench, every whispered conversation. Musk's defense team looked rattled. The prosecution, meanwhile, wore the expressions of hunters who knew the prey had stumbled. Claire Weston stood. "Your Honor, in light of the testimony provided by Ms. Brooks, the prosecution requests permission to submit newly surfaced documentation for review." Judge Cole's gaze sharpened. "Proceed." Two bailiffs moved forward with thick folders stamped confidential. Whispers surged in the gallery like a rising tide. Claire presented emails, contracts, and transcripts, a paper trail suggesting that not only had Musk's companies quietly acquired smaller firms and patents without disclosure, but that internal strategies existed to suppress competitors and inflate valuations through controlled media leaks. The jury leaned in. Lane fought back, arguing that in the world of high-stakes innovation, aggressive acquisition was common practice. "Visionaries don't play by the old rules," he insisted. "They create new ones." But the line between creating the future and manipulating the present was growing thinner by the second. Then came the blow no one expected. Daniela Brooks, still under oath, requested to speak again. Judge Cole allowed it, her curiosity piqued. Daniela stepped forward. I was part of an internal task force, she said, that analyzed social media patterns to deliberately influence public opinion around Musk's ventures. We targeted forums, comment sections, and even direct investor groups. Gasps rippled through the room. It wasn't illegal to market aggressively. But weaponizing perception to manipulate stock prices? That was a different beast entirely. Musk's eyes flickered with something, not fear exactly, but something close. Awareness, maybe. The recognition that this battle was slipping beyond his control. Outside, the skies had opened up, sheets of rain hammering Austin. Inside, the deluge had only just begun. By the final day of trial, the storm outside had finally broken, but inside the courthouse, the tension remained thicker than ever. Elon Musk sat at the defense table, still and composed, yet there was a gravity to him that hadn't been there before, the weight of consequences realized. Judge Cole entered, her robe sweeping the floor like a shadow. She reviewed the documents, the testimonies, the avalanche of evidence both damning and redeeming. She saw the ambition, the recklessness, the breathtaking vision, and the messy, painful aftermath. Mr. Musk, she said finally, this court acknowledges your extraordinary contributions to technology, to energy, and to humanity's vision of the future. But innovation does not exempt one from accountability. The room was silent but for the sound of hearts pounding. This court finds you guilty of reckless market manipulation and ethical breaches. However, taking into account the societal contributions and the absence of malicious intent in certain instances, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years of probation, substantial financial restitution, and mandatory oversight on any future ventures. There was a collective exhale. No jail time. No handcuffs. But the judgment was still a public scar, one Musk would carry long after the news cycles moved on. Elon stood, meeting Judge Cole's gaze. He gave a slight nod. There was no defiance left. Only a man who had tasted both the limitless skies of ambition and the humbling gravity of consequences. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Protesters waved signs. Supporters and critics clashed. But Elon didn't pause. He walked straight to the podium, rainwater dripping from his hair, and spoke. Mistakes were made, he said. By me. By the system. But this trial, this moment, reminds us all, progress at the expense of integrity isn't progress at all. He paused, scanning the crowd. Dream big. Build boldly. But stay rooted. Stay accountable. And with that, he turned away, not as a broken man, but as one redefined. Some failures don't end in defeat, they end in a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Elon Musk's journey through this trial is a reminder that ambition without accountability is a hollow pursuit. It challenges each of us to balance audacity with humility, vision with responsibility. If you find yourself chasing dreams at any cost, or feeling the world demands you to compromise your values to succeed, remember, true greatness is not just about how high you rise, but how deeply you stay rooted while reaching for the stars. Here are 2 books that can guide you on this path. 1. Principles by Ray Dalio. A profound guide to making decisions rooted in radical transparency and integrity, from one of the world's most successful investors. Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. A heartfelt exploration of courageous leadership and the power of vulnerability in creating true, lasting impact. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you that ambition alone isn't enough, maybe it's time to redefine your own path. Find principles and dare to lead today. Your next chapter starts with one courageous decision.